Tell me, which side are you on? Which side are you on? Tell me, which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on?
Jerry Ashton here with today's 15 Minutes of Fact, and in this session, I am going to ask you to buckle up for a special ride. I'm going to take you back into time and then out into the future. Now, we'll do this by airing an interview which I recorded in mid-May when I was visiting Spain. It was in Madrid where I met with our subject, Vlad as he is called, Teichberg. The focus of the interview was on the upcoming, at that time, March Against Monsanto. Now, this interview will give you an extraordinary peek. No, let me correct that. It's really a tutorial on the behind-the-scenes role of occupiers and activists in their approach and their technology used to make possible protests that range in size from a few dozen to as many as was proven with Monsanto, hundreds of thousands of people. Now, I sought Vlad out as I knew by reputation, I had heard about him down at Zuccotti Park, that he was one of a number of former and active Occupy people who were in the process of preparing the communication and reporting network that would be used to track and publicize this worldwide March Against Monsanto event. The March Against Monsanto on May 25, 2013 turned out to be huge. It could not have been that large, nor would it have been given as much attention by the mainstream media if it had not been for the unique, distributed, so-called leaderless network which coordinated protests by almost 500,000 people in over 400 countries. That's the past. As for the future that I promised to take you on, and two, let me pose it this way. You will be listening to the future and understanding better the ongoing role of electronics and social media as it continues to become the central nervous system of revolutionary acts of all kinds. Now, what is highlighted here is that the homegrown techniques and methods brought into life and existence before and during Zuccotti Park are green and growing, and are now in good use throughout the world. So let me introduce you to one of the gardeners. Tell us about that March Against Monsanto, Vlad.
It started a few months ago, not even a few months ago, I think maybe like 6 weeks ago. A few people had that idea. And it's a typical example, it's like a very good idea that a lot of people are signing up for. It's not really centrally controlled in any way, shape, or form. People are just setting up events and mailing in the information that's setting up the event for this March on the 25th. At this point, there's more than 330 cities participating and hundreds of thousands of people. The good thing about it is it's a very simple idea that people can organize around. There are definitely huge problems with corporations owning our future, owning our crops.
So let me establish this again. What we're talking about, Vlad, is that there is a huge worldwide march against Monsanto. How many different cities?
It's more than 300 cities right now.
More than 300 cities. And how many people on the different Facebook pages have decided that they're going to participate?
Hundreds of thousands. We don't even know the exact number right now. Over 200,000, 300,000 confirmed going. At this point, it's going so viral, it's going to get completely huge. And it doesn't even matter how many people sign up for Facebook or not.
The numbers don't make a difference because they're already surpassed. What you're looking for now is how do you coordinate this?
The only way you can coordinate this is to create a system that self-coordinates. Mm-hmm. And the only way to do that is actually not to have any leaders or any centralized points which can fail, but to create systems which is fundamentally horizontal from the get-go, not because of some theory of horizontality, but just because of its functional necessity.
So let's look at this from the viewpoint of the beginnings of Occupy, where the idea of decentralization, the idea that everybody is potentially a leader. Is that what we're saying here?
Yes, that's what we're seeing here. But within Occupy, there was always this conflict between certain people who wanted to be leaders, who wanted to build their careers on the back of Occupy, so to speak, and so on. The idea of Occupy, which was supposed to be decentralized. Within one local occupation, with even as big occupation as New York, having verticality offers some short-term operational advantages sometimes. This is why certain individuals were able to seize power of social media networks and so on, so on, so on. Mm-hmm. But when you start approaching actions which are completely decentralized and huge and worldwide, then any kind of centralization creates a weakness. What happens in these situations, what's going to happen on the 25th, is that we're going to be overwhelmed with information. And if that information has to go through one person or even one group of people, it's 100% certainty that they will fail, because it will be impossible to keep up with that information.
Let's talk about this May 25th. This is where there's going to be worldwide action against Monsanto. Did this come out of the ether, or were there people that were essential at the beginning to start the process?
Nothing ever comes out of the ether. Someone always has some idea somewhere. And then the idea gets picked up by somebody else, gets repeated, shared, it gets evolved, and so on. So I first saw people talking about this action about 2 months ago, or maybe 6 weeks ago, when we started this global Occupy media group. And there were some people who started talking about it, and they launched a call out on one of their Facebook pages that drew out with. And suddenly that call out went viral. Like suddenly 2 million people got shared it or something like that.
Right.
So it was pretty obvious that was an idea whose time has come. And there's a reason for that, political reasons for that, because Congress just passed in a very backroom kind of a way law that even if Monsanto crops are found to be harmful to humans, courts cannot stop them from being sold to humans.
That's right. Basically, Monsanto has bought the courts, they bought the legislators, they bought the process, but they can't buy the people. So basically what we have here...
Well, it's about rebellion. Buying all the institutions which are supposed to protect these abuses from happening. And the problem with Monsanto is not just focused on the United States. It's a global problem. Because you have the horror stories of what's going on in the developing world, where they're basically starving farmers in the name of their profits. Besides the pure health concerns connected to the product that they're selling, there's a huge human cost to how they're implementing their patent ownership of the food supply. This is definitely an idea that unites a lot of people.
Let's go to the idea then, between now and the 25th, what do you expect to be happening?
There's a few things going to be happening. First of all, right now it's gone more viral. Everyone who's involved in this, and there's hundreds of people, we're looking at this tsunami and we're trying to figure out right now, okay, how do we actually create a structure in place so people can participate? So the stories of this happening actually make it out of the chaos that's going to be on the 25th. Because I've done a few of these global actions in the past, and what happens is you have things going on simultaneously in 300 cities or 500 cities or whatever it's going to be by then. It's physically impossible for any one person to even process all this information. So it becomes extremely hard to tell the story, actually, which, unless we actually figure out how we're going to do this well, is going to allow corporate media to pretend it didn't happen.
How do you think corporate media is going to handle 300 cities and hundreds of thousands of people in the streets, and somehow another mainstream media is not going to notice this?
Of course, they just ignore it, because the only way they will actually not ignore it if it's persistent. This is the whole thing with Occupy. They tried to ignore us when we started Occupy Wall Street for a whole week, hoping it would go away. And that was their mistake, actually, because they didn't get a chance to discredit us. We got to define ourselves. A movement was started. But this action right now is still focused on one day. So over the next week, people are going to be thinking about how to create something more persistent.
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, if I were in Medford, Oregon, which is where I grew up, and there's a small Occupy there's a small Occupy in the next town. Let's say that these people participate that one day. But what you're hoping for is that someone in Upper Mashed Potato Falls, Idaho, or wherever they are, is actually going to take the initiative to continue this in some fashion?
It's more than that, because what this march creates is it creates a common public space.
A common public space.
Yes, and once people get there, they can start having discussions about what to do next.
Got it. So this is really, it creates a conversation in a much bigger way and a worldwide way than just Occupy Wall Street and Zuccotti Park.
It's actually very similar, because what Zuccotti created, a common neutral space for people to have a conversation, to think, to plan, to organize. And that is really the nature of Occupy. What we're really occupying is we're occupying public space so we can discuss our future.
Well, give us the name of the websites or email addresses that people can reach.
The easiest thing to do is to Google Monsanto March. If you Google that, you'll find it. There is march against Monsanto.com that lists all of the events worldwide right now that have been submitted, more than 330. And there's another site which is actually very powerful called monsantomarch.org. That's a map. And you go to a map and you zoom in on your area and you will see all of the events around you connected to it. And you will see, when you first go to the map, you're just going to see a sea of red and blue dots, depending on how many people sign up, red or blue. You literally have to use the zoom button and zoom in on your area, because you can't just pick a pin right now because the thing got so big. But yes, what I would encourage people to do actually is to participate in this social experiment of sorts. When you're in your area on the 25th, go on the map, find the March Against Monsanto location next to you, and go there. And when you go there, don't just go there and go through the motions of marching, but engage in conversations. Okay. Engage in planning on how to go forward.
By the way, I want to make sure that our radio audience understands that I'm with you in Madrid and had the opportunity to meet with you, which I'm honored because you're one of the seminal people who was there at Zuccotti Park from the beginning, and you've been involved in activism for years before that.
Well, there was many of us in Zuccotti Park in the beginning. Zuccotti was initially taken by, I think, more than 1,000 people. So there's a lot. I mean, the whole point about this, there is no seminal people in this movement. Okay. We all come to this movement. We bring our experiences, we bring our knowledge, we bring our skills, we can contribute. But the most important thing is, I've had a lot of experience with Occupy, and I'm really glad I got to participate in it in the way I did. But the reality is, it's not about any one or small group of individuals. It's about the ideas, and it's about actually sharing information, sharing knowledge, and figuring out how to work together.
Well, it appears to me that our last few minutes of conversation have led me to the belief that Occupy Monsanto is going to create exactly that same opportunity, only this time in a worldwide basis with a single target for the moment, but the real objective being getting together to discuss these challenges.
Well, it's not. Occupy Monsanto is what it is. We're focusing on this one corporation that's trying to control the government, our food supply, everything. It's, in some ways, the Monsanto problems are symbolic of systemic problems in our system, yes. So it's definitely connected to Occupy. But we want people to actually focus on what to do about this one corporation. Let's start with that. And out of that, build other networks and other actions that deal with all the other problems. And we're not talking about replacing Occupy or it's going to be bigger than Occupy. It's an extension of Occupy. It is the same idea. Right now, we're focusing it worldwide on one particular problem, and it's the people rising up against the corporations in a non-violent way, which could be super, super effective. We basically, like, if this grows to be big enough, this is going to be like a Gandhi moment. And I don't know if we're going to get it on the 25th, as we keep doing these actions, they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Term Gandhi moment.
Well, Gandhi was all about creating like massive civil disobedience to force systematic changes in the system. The reason I said moment is because what's happening on the 25th is just one action. It's just one moment.
One moment, yes.
So so we start with before we create the continuity of moments, we need to create one.
Well, it seems to me like we're going to have many moments, and thanks to people like you.
Now, let me step outside this interview, which had to be abbreviated, and let my listeners know that there is more to come. Much more. Shortly after this Madrid interview, Vlad was off to Istanbul and Gezi Park to join with others in doing for the Turkish demonstrators what he and his confederation of tech activists did for the march against Monsanto. I was fortunate to record him by way of Skype while he was in the thick of it there. If you would like to be alerted as to when this interview will be posted, either write me at writtenoffusa@gmail.com or tweet me at writtenoffusa and be placed on my updated list. You can also tweet Vlad as well as at Vlad Teitberg and mail him at vlad@glassbeadcollective.org. This is Jerry Ashton signing off for WJRNradio.com, 15 minutes of facts.
Tell me which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Tell me which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on?